humanity sets the agenda.
Welcome.
In South Africa, countless numbers of sick patients leave their...
Welcome back. You're still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salailo Makwidi. The time is 5 minutes past 9 Central African time. And we're still tracking that story from Sunday that emerged from Emmarentia, a deadly road rage incident, which has once again raised very, very urgent questions about public safety, bystander response, just policing in general. If you haven't heard about it, well, there was a road rage incident which took place Sunday afternoon in Emmarentia, where unfortunately one person lost their life and one other person is currently in hospital. A man was shot and killed, his wife wounded, and after what authorities say began as a minor bumper bashing, and that ultimately escalated into a confrontation where both drivers allegedly pulled out firearms, and that led us to where we currently find ourselves. So there's been major developments on the story, and we're still tracking it for you as we have, and we're going to be doing that for some time now to try and get you all of the facts, to try and bring you up to speed, because with social media now, it looks like information is all over the place. Everyone seems to be having an opinion on what really happened and who was there first on the scene and who was not. And we're going to try to iron that out. We're going to try and give you as much information as we can, and we're going to be doing that with a community policing forum from Parkview. They're going to be joining us in a few, and we will be speaking to Bianca Albertini. She's the chair of the Parkview CPF, and she's going to be giving us some facts on what we probably missed when it comes to the story. Bianca, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure having you on Salam Media. Really appreciate you giving us your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And I think we'll jump right into it. From the CPF's understanding, can you once again just walk us through what exactly unfolded on the day this past Sunday? There are many reports that suggest this started as, a minor collision, and ultimately it led to one person losing their lives and one person injured. There are reports that both drivers had firearms with them. Are those true? Can you verify them for us?
So, Salalo, yes, what we can confirm is that it was a bumper bashing. It started as a bumper bashing. It then quickly escalated into a verbal exchange of words, which turned into a physical exchange. And then firearms were drawn from both sides, obviously, as you said, resulting in one person being shot.
And from the CPF's point of view, are there any other details that may not yet be widely known, but you guys have gathered as investigations continue to happen, and the police have become more involved, and you guys as CPF have been interacting with them quite closely, I assume?
Yes, we have been interacting very closely with them. There are no other details at this stage. The ballistics reports, we're still waiting for those to be shared. So yes, we are in the process, or rather SAPs are in the process of gathering all of the information. So there are new bits of evidence that keep coming to light as we move through the investigation process.
And when it comes to what exactly happened on the day, has the CPF picked up anything from the community about what led to this confrontation, and those that are eyewitnesses probably saw and thought maybe it would be important to let the authorities know about?
Yes, there are eyewitnesses that have given their statements in. There's a lot of information coming from the community, but unfortunately, none of it is firsthand. So I think you probably would have also seen there's a lot of information being circulated, and most of it is allegations at this stage. There's a lot of emotion involved in this, so a lot of speculation is being shared, which is not very helpful at this stage. But eyewitnesses have given their statements, and they are being interviewed accordingly.
I want to come back to the crime scene, because I think that was also a point of, observation for a lot of people because of the social media videos that we saw doing the rounds. From your observation, how was the crime scene handled by the police and emergency services? You know, there were concerns that authorities took some time to arrive. We saw in the video there was a little girl standing in front of what I think we can assume is the father who was shot, and there wasn't anyone present from the police or ambulance services.
So yeah, that 6-minute video wouldn't show anybody, but services arrived on scene very shortly after that. The first responders on scene were our security companies. So they assisted with containing the immediate scene. And very shortly after that, members of the CPF and SAPS arrived on scene. So the scene was cordoned off very quickly. There were people on the scene when we arrived. So that was the first aim, I think, of the security companies, was to keep the scene contained and clear. And they did a very good job of that as well.
Were there any concerns around response time, and also just securing the scene and evidence handling?
So Salilo, not evidence handling. No, that was handled exactly as it should have been. I think there's always concerns around response time, and especially in moments of panic, 10 minutes or 15 minutes can feel like 2 hours. So I don't think, anybody actually recorded the exact response time, but it was within 15 minutes of the first call that we received.
And the reports that there were actually 2 firearms at the scene, have those been verified? Because we had a conversation with the NPA yesterday when they told us that they wouldn't be prosecuting at this stage. That also the perpetrator here, if I can say, is citing that this was a self-defense kind of situation, and the person that ultimately lost their lives was also carrying a firearm. Is that verified that there were 2 firearms on the scene, and are they licensed if that's the case?
So yes, I can verify that there were 2 firearms on the scene. The issue of the licensing will be made public shortly as part of the investigation, but there were 2 firearms that were taken in.
Do we know at this stage whether the firearms were licensed or not?
We do, but that's not something that I can share at this stage. But yeah, that will be made public very shortly.
And we know that there's a woman that was involved, the wife of the gentleman that unfortunately lost their lives. Do we know in what condition is she in hospital at this moment?
Yes, she's stable. The injury to her hand is what is being dealt with at this stage. But she is stable. She's able to communicate. She's conscious. She's aware of everything that's happened. And obviously her family are taking care of her while she's in hospital.
I want to come back to maybe if you can give a comment of the NPA and their decision to not prosecute at this stage. They're citing ongoing investigations. Do you have any idea at this point who will be investigating? Are you in contact with the police? Is it the Parkview police station that's currently investigating, or there are other investigators that are doing the work and that you're assisting at the moment?
So yes, Parkview Police Station are currently investigating. There is an investigating officer that's been appointed, and he's working together with the provincial office on this.
That's very, very important to note. There've been concerns from some of the residents of the area. I think you and I spoke. It was just a month or 2 months ago, where there was also a murder case. There was unfortunately a woman that was found dead in the area. Just take us through the situation of police presence, community policing forums presence within the area, and how situations like this are dealt.
So Salado, I think the first thing that we aim to do is to equip the community with facts. As I said earlier, there's a lot of speculation and a lot of emotion, which generally tends to lead to fear mongering and people, being scared for their lives. do we have crime in our area? Yes. Does every area have an element of crime? Yes. So our aim with educating people and giving them factual information is to try and calm some of that fear down and look at each situation in isolation. So you can't base all of them on the same category or criteria. That's quite an important thing to look at. People are not being murdered, if I can say that, just without a reason. There is cause, whether right or wrong, but it's important to look at the factual information rather than just taking note of all of the fear mongering that's being shared.
And is the Parkview CPF on high alert right now, considering that it's 2-3 murders in a space of a month? Are there any heightened security measures that you guys have put into place, and any other measures that you've put into place to try and put the community at ease, and to try and have your finger on the pulse, so to say?
Definitely. Our operational planning has been extremely good as a result of this. There's a lot of ongoing operations looking at particular areas that are of concern to the community. So again, we're relying on the community to share that information, and then it gets operationalized. So our members are on the ground. They've increased their patrols. They've increased their operations. So we are making a concerted effort to try and show a presence in the community and put everybody at ease as far as we can.
No, most definitely. I want us to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue with this conversation to try and get as much facts as possible and to try and educate the community about what led to this very, very unfortunate scenario, and also the work that the CPF in Parkview is currently doing.
In South Africa, countless numbers of sick patients leave their homes at the crack of dawn to join long queues at clinics and public hospitals, many of them suffering pangs of hunger in addition to the symptoms of disease. The Al Imdad Foundation's Slice for Life teams deliver sandwiches to these patients at more than 40 hospitals and clinics across the country. Help us to keep on relieving hunger. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Ah, the kitchen, the heart of the home, where memories are made and celebrated. Our go-to place for those freshly stacked pancakes early in the morning or for that late-night snack munchies. We are in there together, cooking, eating, and celebrating life together. Let's keep the kitchen a place that is shared by everyone, where we build stronger bonds and grow together. Sunfoil, Now We Cooking. Visit nowwecooking.co.za for recipes that everyone can help make.
World-class financial services only at Sapphire Global, your financial partner. If you are looking for Islamic, Sharia, and ethical financial products, look no further. Sapphire Global offers a wide range of financial service offerings, from short-term to life and investments. A full-service center with all financial requirements under one brand. Our highly skilled and experienced consultants are ready to help protect your financial future. Contact us on 041 001 0184 or visit our website on www.sapphireglobalfs.com. Sapphire Global is an authorized financial services provider.
Elite Basmati, available throughout the Middle East, and now for the very first time exclusive to South Africa. Brought to you by Murchison Spice, Pietermaritzburg's most famous specialty store. Elite Basmati, available in aromatic white and golden cellar, is packaged in a world-class facility in India and is filled with wholesome goodness for your well-being. Elite Basmati rice by Murchison Spice. For trade inquiries, contact Mohammed on 033 387 2121. Murchison Spice.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media, your humanitarian broadcaster.
Welcome back. You're still tuned in to News and Views. Myself, Salailo Mokwidiri, and we're still tracking, following, trying to dissect the story that happened this past Sunday. This is at Emmarentia, where there was a shooting, road rage shooting, I should say, where one person unfortunately lost their lives, and there's also a woman who's currently in hospital. This is the wife of the deceased, and we have Bianca Albertini, who's the chair of the Parkview CPF, who's joining us currently to try and assist as much as she can, because the CPF is the closest people to the police right now. They have their eyes and ears on what's currently happening in the community, and when disturbing events like these happen, they are now the first people of reference, of contact, that you'd want to try and get as much information from as possible. Bianca, thank you so much for staying with us. Really, really appreciate you giving us your time. I want to come back to the wife of the deceased here, because there are allegations that she's the one who fetched the firearm or gave the firearm to the gentleman who unfortunately lost his life. Do we know at this point whether herself she might be charged of being involved here in any way possible?
Yes, that is one of the possibilities. So that would be then possession of a firearm. Yes.
And when it comes to all of these viral videos that we're seeing circulating online, are the police possibly going to use any of them as evidence? Because the NPA did confirm that they're still skimming through the evidence. There's not enough evidence at this point to prosecute the case. Do we have a scenario where that is a possibility?
It is definitely a possibility. It is. So that will go together with the ballistics report that was done on the scene on the day. So, yes.
There's also a concerning conversation that's being had here, because from what we know, the gentleman that's unfortunately deceased was a Pakistani national, and there are conversations, unverified reports that the Pakistani community are threatening that they might retaliate here. Do you know of anything of that nature?
So we've heard the same, if I can call them whispers, throughout the community that you've heard. We haven't got anything verified or confirmed to that effect. But as I said to you earlier, there's a lot of emotion, lot of emotion from friends, from family, and even from community members who didn't know either the deceased or the other party. So I think with all of that emotion, a lot of things are being said. But as I said, nothing confirmed at this stage.
Let's talk about the role that you guys as CPF have been playing at this point. How closely have you been working with the police? Is there an exchange of information? Are they working with you guys quite well? And has that yielded any kind of progress in trying to see if this case could be closed and all of the possible evidence can be presented to the police to see the NPA ultimately prosecuting?
Definitely. They have been working with us very closely and giving us the information that we need. We are also assisting them by sharing everything that we receive, as you said earlier, the eyes and ears. So if we come across anything that's been shared, we send it through to them. And then obviously we'll give them the space to reconcile and handle the investigation as they need to and as they know how to do.
And I think this is very, very important from, just the safety and education perspective. What should members of the public do if they're first on the scene in a situation like this one? Just in passing, because a lot of people seem to be scared. They don't know whether to intervene or whether to call the police, or because it can be very, very dangerous, to try and intervene and be involved. From a CPF point of view, residents, what should be their first measure when encountering such a situation?
So, Solalo, if we're looking at this particular situation, I think of equal importance would be the police and obviously ambulance services. Many of our community members rely on private security companies for a quicker response time, which is also fine. But the most important thing to do in a situation like that is to get people that are knowledgeable on dealing with the scene on scene first. So we had a couple of people who phoned friends and family first, but your first point of call should be authorities of some kind, be it the ambulance, be it the police. As I said, in this particular case, they're both equally important. Or your security company. You know, these people are obviously trained and know exactly what to do and what not to do. As they say, no good deed goes unpunished. So there are times when people try and intervene and actually land up, you know, causing more harm or making the situation worse because they don't have the knowledge that's needed to manage a situation like that.
And when it comes to, you know, finding weapons, as it was, you know, the reality in this situation, are people permitted to touch them, to present them to the police, or leave the scene as it is?
Absolutely not. Leave the scene as it is. That was one of the things that members of the public struggled with the most on Sunday, is the fact that it is then a crime scene. So the most important thing to do on an active crime scene is to not touch anything, because when fingerprinting is done, you know, you're then going to be called to ask why your fingerprints are on the weapons. So you can actually see in one of the videos that have gone viral, there is a security officer that is standing over the one firearm, ensuring that it's not touched. So the most important thing when there's an aspect or an element of crime involved in the scene is to not touch anything.
Was the other firearm touched? Is that the, you know, the situation? And could it ultimately lead to evidence tampering of some sort?
No, there's no evidence to suggest that the other firearm was touched. They were both left exactly as they were when the scene came to an end. So as I said, ballistics will continue with their investigation, and the investigating officer will be informed of those findings.
In closing, Bianca, any word to members of the community regarding this? And most importantly, what message do you have for the broader community of Emmarentia and the Parkview region?
I think my broader community message would just be, again, to remind people that sometimes sharing unverified information can do more harm than good. I know there's a lot of people who have been extremely traumatized by the video footage, particularly with the children involved. So I think it's human nature to want to share information, but sometimes it can be detrimental, and there's misinformation, and that leads to a whole separate issue. So I think my immediate message would be to just stick to the facts and share what has been confirmed, not messages that have no date or timestamp or really sender information. Just stick to the facts. There's many sources of information that do release facts. So my message would be just to focus on the facts.
There you go, Chair of the Parkview CPF, Bianca Albertini. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you giving us your time and making yourself available to give us more insight on what's happening in the Parkview Emmarentia community.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
There you go. And with that, we're going to be wrapping up the conversation with Bianca. But this is a story that we're going to be tracking because yesterday we broke the news of the NPA. The NPA essentially coming out and saying, well, they won't be persecuting at this stage because of lack of evidence. Investigation is still ongoing. As you heard there from Bianca, the police working quite closely with the CPF. They're trying to, scheme through the evidence and make sure that, no detail is left out. And it was very, very important yesterday for us to be there because everyone was waiting with bated breath. It was the biggest story of, the weekend. It'll be interesting to see what happens now. But what I can confirm with you is that the NPA won't be persecuting at this stage. The perpetrator is currently out. I can confirm with that. The NPA did tell us that they're currently out. They're not, in custody with the police. So it's going to be interesting how that pans out. And we'll be getting some reports, some verified, unverified. We also received another one here on Salam Media. It was circulating on the group chats. It is of someone that claims to be an eyewitness, and they essentially wrote this to us to say, as drivers, how many times have we hurled empty threats? I could kill him. But never did I imagine the reality of these words would take shape on my screen, exposing the horrifying reality when people truly mean what they say. It continues to say, a minor bump between two cars with barely a noticeable scratch became the spark for ego, poor lack of judgment, and a dangerous lack of integrity, and escalated into fatal road rage incident that has subsequently reshaped the lives of two innocent children and caused a ripple effect on those directly involved and the community that had to witness it. It continues to say, I fell asleep last night with a crushing weight of the haunting cries of children who were not mine, yet feeling as if they were. I wished desperately to reach out to them and hold them really tight. I was devastated knowing how alone and confused they must have felt. They had been locked away in the car, albeit for their own safety, but still, there was nobody to just hold them and soothe their distress and comfort their anxiety. They had already witnessed something that no child should ever have to witness. Their mom sat on the ground injured, bleeding, most likely numbed and confused herself, trying to reconcile the consequences of her actions and those of her husband's, the body of whom lay a few meters away. A brutal reminder of what happens when ego and temper take control and the repercussions of acting without thinking. The events unfolded within minutes, but the aftermath has shattered every witness on scene and every viewer who had the misfortune of watching the videos. It was shared and reshared, and we all watched a father take his last breath as his little daughter stood sobbing helplessly, and the small hands of his son trying to resuscitate him, mimicking motions remembered from TV clingings to hope. It would be enough to keep his father alive until help arrived. And seeing the trauma on the face of the shooter, I felt only sorrow, not anger. And I can't understand how many would instantly feel rage because the harrowing wails of the children triggered our emotions, and the shooter, a victim himself, paid the ultimate price. He became the demon, condemned by the uninformed and opinionated. It continues to say it was not entirely his fault. The chain of events that unfolded is not a burden that he should have to carry alone. Yet he will now have to live with the death of a man caused by his retaliation. And the woman who sat with her wounded hand, barely an emotion crossed her face, blind to her husband's body, deaf to her children's cries, she sat reeling from the shock, disassociated from the chaos, stunned into silence, completely and utterly detached. In the midst of such speculation, I have only this clear takeaway. I have no right to judge. I'm not without fault, and I'm just a witness to a tragedy. I have seen the reality of my own frustrations as a driver and my own empty threats come to life. I've been shown why we shouldn't lash out in anger, why we should shrug off our egos, and even if we're right, we need to leave things be. Maybe it's also easy to analyze the situation from this mind of mine that is not clouded by adrenaline, frustration, or anger. But I've learned a grave lesson at an unbearable cost. One fatality, two orphan children, a widow burdened with regret, and a man who will be haunted by his own guilt, desperately hoping his self-defense pleas won't be in vain. Continues to read, I have only my humble duas for each of them, because ultimately it's very easy to pass judgment as mere witnesses. May Allah elevate the ranks of their mahrum in Jannah, forgive him his shortcomings, and bring ease and strength to his widow. O merciful Allah, ease the trauma of his little children and comfort their anguished hearts, and may Allah grant ease to the man who be haunted by guilt after taking the life of another, and guide his heart through what he must now carry. No justice, Ya Allah, no justice compared to yours. Grant justice, guidance, wisdom, and mercy to all those involved. And I think this letter almost encapsulates what happened this past Sunday, and we'll be continuing here on Salam Media to try and give you updates and give you the details of all that you need to know about this case. And yeah, very, very unfortunate circumstances, but we'll continue to follow the story. Going to go for a quick break. When we come back, News and Views continues.